Hey, this is Derek Whatley. I'm an engineer working on OpenShift migration tools at Red Hat. In this video, we're going to take a look at some improvements to logs included in Migration Toolkit for Containers 1.4.3. In particular, we've tried to make it a lot clearer when the tool gets stuck due to some problem with your cluster, what the problem is and how you can resolve it and where you can look to resolve that problem. So we're going to simulate a migration that gets stuck here. We're going to start looking at the logs by tailing them and piping them into JQ, which can interpret the JSON formatted logs and display it in a nice pretty format. So right away here we see that there's a new log message shown here that tells us about an inability to attach or mount volumes, and this is an event that happened while we were waiting for this rsync transfer pod to come up on the destination cluster. We've adopted a standard all throughout the controller where anytime we're waiting on some resource that's outside of the controller, we now will log the resource namespace and name, we'll log which cluster it's on if we have that information available, and we'll also log any other pertinent information that we have available to us that we think would be useful for you, the user, to unblock your migration. In this case, I know that there's an underlying problem with the PV that has been created. Those log messages kind of gave us a hint about that, but I know for a fact that the PV, it was a elastic block store PV, and I went ahead and deleted that just to simulate this failure. So the PV resource existed on the cluster, but in reality the volume didn't exist in AWS. So that was the reason for that failure we just saw. There's another pattern that we've taken on where anytime we enter a phase, and there are 20 to 30 phases in each of our migration actions that we perform. Anytime we enter a phase, we will log a description of the phase that we're about to start working on. And when we exit the phase, if we're not able to proceed at that time, we'll always include information about what is blocking us from being able to proceed. So that could be things like a pod that we're waiting on to come up, or a volume that we're waiting on to be created or bound. It could be a route that we're waiting for it to get admitted. These are the types of things that typically stop a migration that's running. So all of these things should be a lot easier to find through these logs now. There's also, because we've taken on this consistent structured logging format, you can now grep through the logs for a particular migration or a particular direct volume migration, and you can find all of the logs related to one particular migration. So you can see that we have these common keys shared in each log message, like you can see the make plan that a message is related to, or the make migration that it's related to. So I've just grepped for all of the logs related to the migration that we just performed, and we were able to filter the logs in that way. In the future, we're going to try to expand this so that these common keys that you can use to search through logs are available not only in the MIG controller logs, but also in the other components of the migration process. So keep an eye out for that.